Hello everyone and welcome into the studios at WJHI for another socially distanced production of School Talk. I'm Clay Ables, your host, and with me today is our Superintendent of Greater Clark County Schools, Mr. Mark Laughner. How are we today, sir?
Good, thanks for having me back.
Excited to have you in. It's been a while. We're getting close here to end of semester one here on November the 11th. And the first topic we have for you today, I know a lot of people look around the country and especially around Southern Indiana when we talk about the school calendar. So tell me, I know looking forward to next year, there's been a few different options presented to the staff and people of the community of the school calendar next year. What are plans for Greater Clark and how is the school calendar going to phase out or continue to move as we move forward into the next year?
Typically every October, November, we look at the calendar for the next year and try to put together 2 or 3 options that we can share with the staff, the Teachers Association, because that's one of the discussable items in terms of the calendar. And then also get feedback from parents and staffs in the school and things like that. So we've done that. There were 3 different calendars that we put out there for feedback. One, which was calendar A in the survey, was very similar to what we currently do. The 2 weeks of fall break, 2 weeks of spring break, starting at the end of July and then finishing before Memorial Day. Calendar B was very similar to what New Albany Floyd does. They're a little unique in when they start school back up and when they finish before the when they finish the first semester. And then C was something a little different. Based on feedback that we have gotten from parents, from staff, we wanted to look at something different. C was where there's only 1 week of fall break, but then we take the whole week of Thanksgiving. So those 2 days before Thanksgiving, we wouldn't have any school anymore. Calendar C also got rid of all e-learning days. We would still start the school year at the same time, towards the end of July, and we would finish before Memorial Day weekend, which is good. And once we surveyed everyone, in terms of the data, the parent data was pretty much a statistical tie between calendar A and calendar C. When we looked at the staff responses, is probably about 5% more wanted calendar C. So that's what we're going to recommend to the school board Tuesday night on November 15th, that we go with calendar C, which is 1 week of fall break, but the whole week of Thanksgiving. Then of course we'll have about 2 weeks of Christmas break or holiday break and then 2 weeks of spring break. There would be no e-learning days pre-planned in that calendar. We would still use e-learning days for any inclement weather, snow days or anything like that. So we feel like it's somewhat of a unique, different calendar, especially not going to school those 2 days before Thanksgiving, eliminating the e-learning days. We think it'll be a really good academic calendar also.
Now I know you've been in education a long time, not just as a superintendent, but as a principal and a teacher. Tell me from your preference or even data that you've got over time, so when you move this new calendar to calendar C, you talk about going to 1 week of fall break and the full Thanksgiving. Does any of that you think help in terms of giving a staff a longer break, giving the students a little bit longer break? I mean, when you all look at that stuff, how does that come into play of, okay, let's try to keep the students in rhythm? I know that's a big part of what you have to do.
Well, there's a lot of factors that we look at. Number one is the continuity of the academic calendar. You want continuity and consistency with students so that teachers can really dig in on the academic side, but also the behavior, social emotional side of making sure students understand how to follow your policies, procedures. And it's secondary kids catch on to that quick, and when they come back after a 2-week break, they jump right in to following the policies, procedures. But elementary kids really struggle when you take 2 weeks off. And so that was a factor. The other factor is we wanted to be considerate of our parents. We were getting some feedback from the standpoint of the pre-planned e-learning days. That was hard on parents in terms of daycare and also working with students, with the e-learning. Also, the 2 weeks of fall break, is hard on parents to some extent in terms of daycare and those type of things. So we try to take all that feedback and put a calendar together that we feel like, meets the needs of everyone. It's not always going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be a few that don't like it, but we tried to get the feedback and incorporate that feedback into this decision on the calendar.
Something else that affects the calendar for now as we get closer to December, especially towards late November, inclement weather. Let's talk about that a little bit here. What's Greater Clark County's plan? I know the state of Indiana we've talked about before. Now we have e-learning days we can use instead of having a snow day. What's the plan and process for inclement weather this year? What do we have in terms of what steps do we have to take? And I think the biggest question people are going to have is, when do we know school's not on, or when is it not on? So we'll start with that, I guess.
Yeah, and that's always interesting times for me. As superintendent.
Early
also,
mornings, huh?
Yeah, it's very early mornings. I usually get up if there's any chance of ice or snow. I get up about 4:30. I check the roads in my area, which is I live in between Jeff and Charlestown. Our transportation director Daniel Borders also drives the roads of Jeff. Gary Green, who works here at Jeff High, he comes down from Scottsburg, checks roads on his way. And then Jeff Brooks comes down from New Washington, who's our assistant transportation director. And we want to try to make a decision by 5:30 so we can announce it to staff. So 5:30 in the morning is our goal to make a decision. Let the staff know whether it's a 2-hour delay or e-learning day. And then we get on, as soon as we make that decision, I then send out a school messenger message to all parents and all staff what we're doing. I will tell you, my personal philosophy is I try not to do too many 2-hour delays, especially with e-learning now. Our first 3 days would be synchronous e-learning if we have inclement weather, and then we would use the asynchronous after that, and have those 3 asynchronous that we could do after that, and then we'd have to go back to synchronous. So that's now in the new calendar we would just use the asynchronous, the 3 first asynchronous days, and then jump into the synchronous e-learning days, because the state passed a law this last legislative session basically saying that school districts in the state of Indiana cannot have more than 3 asynchronous e-learning days. Anything over 3 have to be synchronous, where the students follow a schedule, interact with their teacher, during each period, and all students are logged on. So it's an early morning. We try to make the decision as fast as we can. Sometimes we'll try to even make the decision the night before. I mean, if there's a 100% guarantee we're going to have ice, 2 or 3 inches of snow on the ground, starting at 5:36 in the morning, we're going to try to let parents know the night before. And usually I try to make that decision by 9:30 in the evening the night before.
Now, last question I have for you on inclement weather. When you, from the school system standpoint, how do you all work with, say, the city of Jeff and city of Charlestown? Do you all share resources, or how does that work in terms of talking with them on the roads and all that type of stuff? How does that relationship go?
Well, there's a lot of communication between the road department, of Jeff, Charlestown, the county road department in terms of Clark County. We talk to county police officers, Charlestown, Jeff PD, just to get an idea of what they're seeing, because they're out there all night, and so we get a lot of good feedback from them. There's a lot of communication. And then we also, we try to help each other out in terms of salt storage. There's been times where we've run low and the county and the city has helped us, and vice versa.
Now, as we move forward here on School Talk, talking a little bit about today with our school plan, also our calendar, along with our inclement weather, I want to transition and move forward into talking about school facilities, which we talk about a lot on here, but it's been a while since you've been in. When we look at school facilities, tell me about November 11th, where we stand today. What's the latest in terms of projects? I know there's been a lot of talk about the Jeff swimming pool. I know new schools being built. Tell me where you're at today on some of your projects.
Well, in terms of the ongoing projects right now, there's several ongoing here in Jeffersonville, one being the tennis facility, which is going to be beautiful when it's finished. I mean, the 12 courts and the building, it's going to be a great setting out there. We're also doing some classrooms at Riverside Elementary. They've already started. The bids for New Washington's improvements out there for their track and tennis courts and baseball, softball improvements will start here probably the next couple of months. The bids have just gone out. And then we're doing improvements at North Haven, where there will be a new gym and 4 new classrooms. The old gym will be converted into classrooms. The bids for that will go out probably in the next month or 2, and they'll get started probably in February, March would be my guess. And then the other 2 projects are at River Valley. We're going to renovate all the bathrooms there because those weren't touched in the last renovation. We're going to redo the gym floor, put a wooden floor down, get rid of the vinyl floor because it's bubbling and it's really a safety issue to some extent. And then also we're converting the old pool into classroom space and office space there at River Valley. And essentially at Charlestown Middle, we're doing the same thing. We're going to renovate all the old bathrooms because they weren't touched in the last renovation. Put a wood floor down in their gym, get rid of the vinyl floor because same situation, it's bubbling, coming apart. And then do some cosmetic things out there. As far as upcoming projects, there will be some hearings coming up in about a month in regards to the pool here at Jeff Hyde and Parkwood Elementary. Those are the next big projects. And, the first step is the board has to approve those projects, and we have to have hearings at school board meetings. And so that'll be step one, and then hopefully everything goes smoothly with that, and we'll get going on those. And our hope is that we can sell the bonds for the pool project and also Parkwood Elementary project sometime in March, April, and that we could start construction. This is an aggressive scenario, but hopefully we could start construction late fall of next year.
Yeah, this is kind of a two-part question here, but to go back to what you talked about, I know you've been very big since you've been the superintendent on talking about doing all these projects but not increasing the tax rate. So tell me, with all these projects going on, how have you all been able to do that? Is it through bonds, or how does that process work where you're still able to do these great projects but it's not going to cost extra money on taxes?
Yeah. We fund those projects through our debt service fund, and that's based on property taxes, your tax rate, assessed value, debt being paid off. We're very fortunate in Greater Clark that our communities of Jeffersonville, Charlestown, Clarksville are growing. There's new houses going in, apartments. There's a lot of growth, which means our assessed value is going up. I haven't been with you in a while, but this past year our assessed value in Greater Clark went up 18%.
Wow.
Okay, which is huge. I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah.
one of the largest increases in the state of Indiana. And that allows us to do these projects without increasing the tax rate. The pool project, the Parkwood Elementary project, the current projects we're working on are tax neutral projects. The tax rate is not going to go up. It's going to stay at $1.10. With the pool project and the Parkwood, if we get that through and approved, the tax rate will stay at $1.10. So we're not going to increase tax rate on anyone. And it's they're all tax neutral projects, and we feel good about that. We know the economy slowed down a little bit, but we have our bond underwriter Stiefel, and also Policy Analytics is a group out of Indianapolis. They're constantly evaluating our assessed value, where our tax rate should be, how much debt's being paid off, and what we can do in the future while staying at that tax rate of $1.10.
Now that's the positive. The only negative thing, and it's not for Greater Clark but for all the country, is dealing with inflation. So tell me, for you in terms of construction, how have you all dealt with inflation? Because I know everywhere across the country all projects are getting more and more expensive. How do you deal with that as a school system?
Well, it's been a challenge. I mean, because every project we've done, like the tennis courts out here at Jeff High, we've set a budget for it, and then once it goes out to bid, we've seen significant increase in costs, which has required us to try to find more money to get it done the way we wanted to get it done. And so every project we're seeing anywhere from 20-25% increases in cost and bids, and it's just one of those deals. When you look at school construction, you have to come up with obviously a design, based on architectural designs and engineering designs. And once that design's done, then you can bid it out. In the time that you set the budget, come up with a design, and then bid it out, especially the last 2 years, in the middle of that, there's been significant inflation. So you have to adjust your budget, and that's been a challenge for us. But one of the things we're committed to is doing it the way we wanted to originally do it, not cut corners. We want it to look good for the next 50 years, that it's going to be there. In the past, we've cut corners on some of those projects because it didn't come in where it was supposed to come in, but we're trying not to do that on any of these projects. We want them done right. We want them to last, the 50, 60 years that they're supposed to last, and be facility improvements that enhance the learning environment of our students and also enhance the community.
Last topic for you today before we finish up. I know our most important topic being academics. That's what we're going to finish on this. Tell me a little bit about, I know you've been very impressed with things going on around here with Greater Clark. With academics and how things are going, the progress of Greater Clark County Schools and also how that ties in with all the academies. I know we've seen, really just in the last few weeks, we talked about the robotics program and saw a Health Service Academy video that was out. Tell me how things are progressing there for Greater Clark County Schools.
Well, I look at it at two levels. You look at the secondary to high school level and the academy model. The accountability model for the high schools really revolves around the graduation rate, and are students college and career ready? And in Greater Clark, we're doing a great job with that. I mean, we're around that 95, 96, 97% graduation rate. And the reason we're there ahead of most other school districts in the area is because of the academy model. Every student's in a pathway, and because of that pathway, they're able to take stackable courses in that pathway and meet the graduation requirements, and also earn certifications. And so that's what we should be doing. That's the work we should be doing, just like your radio TV program here, for our students, preparing them for college and careers. At the elementary level, K through 8, the focus is really on the iLearn scores, how students are doing on iLearn, and that piece, and so now that we're out of COVID, we've seen the learning loss, we're trying to rebound from that. Our principals are doing a great job and my academic team at the cabinet level in the admin building are doing a great job of providing professional development to the principals and the teachers on how we can intervene with these students that are behind and get them caught up. Whether that's the literacy model we use, which is based on the science of reading, or the math model we use, which is a little bit of balanced math programming, and also the whole idea of conceptual math. We sent out a video about a month or two ago explaining how we teach math in this district. And then also, how do we provide intervention to our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students that are behind and they just need more time? How do we find that time to intervene with those students so that we can get them caught up, and see the growth that we want to see each year? And at the high school level, you're seeing that too. One of the big pieces of data that we look at the high school level is what percentage of the students at each grade level are on track to graduate. And what that means is a freshman here at Jeff High should finish the year with at least 10 or more credits earned. A sophomore here at Jeff High should finish their sophomore year at least with 20 or more credits, and then a junior 30 or more. If they meet that criteria, then they're on track to graduate. And I will tell you my experience as a high school principal, if you can get a student to be on track through their freshman and sophomore year, at the end of their sophomore year to have 20 or more credits, then more than likely they're going to graduate, and they're going to finish, and they're going to finish strong, and so that piece of data is really important, at the high school level.
Lastly, for you to go with that academy question, I should say, I know earlier this year down at Franklin Square, the robotics program, getting that built in through a donation. Do you see more of that going that direction from middle school, elementary level, trying to implement the academies even earlier if possible?
Absolutely. One of the things we want to do is, that was sort of our pilot school in terms of STEM programming. We want to take that to every elementary, especially the two new ones that we're building. We want to make sure STEM labs are built within the schools and find space for STEM labs in the other areas, other schools that don't have them. And that's one of the things we're doing at River Valley with the renovation there. The pool is, we want at least one or two of those classrooms to be STEM labs. And so that programming we want to expand, and then we want to look bringing that academy model down to especially the middle school kids. It's never too early to get them started about college career programming. What are they interested? They're already doing a lot of surveys and assessments on what their career interests are, so that they have an idea before they come to high school, what pathway they should choose. And so we want to keep pushing that down. We have to be careful though from the standpoint of, like I said earlier, the focus K through 8 has to be on that iLearn focus, because that's our accountability test from the state. So we have to make sure we keep our eyes on that and make sure that we're getting our students to master the standards and skills they need to perform well on the iLearn test.
Fantastic information. I appreciate you coming in, Mr. Laughner. I know we covered a lot today, from the school calendar, inclement weather, academies, all those type of things. I know you're going to have Probably a busy November, December as we get through the end of the first semester here, but hope to have you back in, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's Mark Laughner, our Superintendent of Greater Clark County Schools here on School Talk from the WJHI studios. I'm Clay Abels, reminding you can listen or watch to School Talk on our various platforms through Cable 184, along with on the radio at 98.5 FM and streaming audio at WJHI.com. We're also on our social media platforms at WJHI on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Mark Laughner, I'm Clay Abels saying so long, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of School Talk right here on 98.5 WJHI, LP Jeffersonville, the home of the Red Devil Network.